July 28, 1944, Dutch New Guinea, 12,000 feet above ELP Apu-Tehebe. Clouds whip past the canopy. In the gaps between them, a duel is taking place that defies every instinct of self-preservation. It is a battle of will above the Pacific. If you were sitting in the cockpit of this American P-38 Lightning right now, the first thing you would feel is not heroism. It is a sickening pressure. Two massive Allison V-1710 liquid-cooled engines are screaming at 2,800 horsepower. They are just inches from your hips. The aluminum skin of the fuselage is groaning under the G-force. But none of that matters right now. The only thing that matters is the black dot ahead. It is a Japanese fighter with blood-red rising sun insignias on its wings. It is not running away. It has leveled its nose, adjusted its course, and is accelerating like a cannonball directly at your windshield. It is the most insane tactic in aerial warfare, the head-on pass. The closing speed is approaching 500 miles per hour. That means for every single tick of the clock, the distance to your death shrinks by over 700 feet. It is terrifying. At this speed, the human nervous system can barely process the visual signals. You are not seeing a plane anymore. You are staring at a rapidly expanding shadow of your own mortality. The man in that Mitsubishi Ki-51 Sonya is not a rookie. He is Captain Saburo Shimada, commander of the 73rd Independent Flying Chutai. He just humiliated 3 American fighters. He slipped through their formation like an eel. Now, the Japanese ace has tired of hiding. He decides to ram this American pilot. He has decided to ram this American pilot in a final, suicidal collision. But Captain Shimada has made a fatal calculation today. He assumes the man facing him is just another hasty, inexperienced American lieutenant relying on superior horsepower alone. He has no idea that the hands gripping the P-38 yoke belong to a 42-year-old civilian, a man with no rank, a man with no dog tags and no military ID. Technically, his presence here is a violation of the strictest military regulations. If he dies in the next second, Washington will not know how to write the press release. His name is Charles Augustus Lindbergh. The lone Eagle who, 17 years ago, flew the Atlantic Ocean alone. The man once worshipped as a god, then branded a traitor. He was branded a traitor by President Roosevelt for his politics. The distance has closed to zero. The vortex shakes the wings. Lindbergh does not blink. His heart rate is spiking on adrenaline, but his hands are stone. He waits for the perfect window. He waits for a fraction of a second. Just before impact, he clamps down on the trigger. The P-38 nose erupts. One 20mm Hispano cannon for 50 caliber machine guns fire simultaneously. It is a wall of metal. For 6 full seconds, Lindbergh holds the trigger down. The tracers lash out like a whip slamming into the Japanese bomber. You can visibly see the Mitsubishi engine disintegrate. Metal shards spraying into the slipstream as thick black smoke pours out. At the very last instant, Lindbergh yanks back on the stick. His P-38 groans, clearing the burning wreckage by mere feet. The turbulence nearly flips him over. When he looks back, the once fearsome Sonya is trailing a long pillar of smoke. It is diving uncontrollably toward the blue Pacific. Seconds later, a massive white geyser erupts from the ocean surface. Foam spreads in concentric circles and then the water merges back together. Captain Shimada is dead. And Charles Lindbergh, a civilian consultant who should have been sitting in an air-conditioned office, has just shot down a commander. In an unofficial, off-the-book skill, it sounds like a script from a Hollywood action movie, but this was the reality of the Pacific Theater in 1944. However, Lindbergh did not come to this tropical hell just to chase the thrill of a dogfight. He came to defeat an enemy far more dangerous than the Japanese Iro. He came to fight the invisible killer that was slowly strangling American air power distance. To understand the madness of this moment, we have to wind the clock back. June 26, 1944. Halangia Air Base. This is New Guinea, one of the least hospitable places on Earth. The air is thick enough to chew. It is smelling of rotting vegetation, high-octane aviation fuel, and the sweat of thousands of men. For the 475th Fighter Group, the famous Satan's Angels. The war is not just against the Japanese, it is a war against geography. Under a crude palm-thatched roof, Lieutenant Colonel Charles MacDonald is trying to distract himself. He is playing a game of checkers. At 29 years old, the commander is already a double ace with 10 kills, but he is exhausted. His unit flies the P-38J Lightning, the best twin-engine fighter in the American arsenal. It is fast, heavily armed, and durable. But it has a fatal flaw, which is short legs. The Pacific Ocean is too big. Even with drop tanks, the operational manual strictly limits the combat radius. It limits the radius to about 570 miles. Beyond that red line, you do not come back. 570 miles in the Pacific is a joke. It means pilots fly all the way to the target, have minutes to engage, and must turn back. They cannot dogfight, they cannot chase. They cannot throttle up. They spend the flight staring at the fuel gauge, watching the needle drift toward empty with scary speed. In New Guinea, there are no emergency landings, only shark-infested waters or jungles. More pilots vanish due to empty tanks. More pilots are vanishing due to empty tanks than enemy fire. As MacDonald stares at the checkerboard, the screen door creaks open. A tall, balding man in an ill-fitting insignia free khaki uniform walks in. "Excuse me," the stranger says with a quiet confidence. "I am Charles Lindbergh." MacDonald freezes. The name hits him hard. Everyone knows Lindbergh. In 1927 he flew. He flew the Spirit of St. Louis to Paris with no radio or parachute. He is a living legend. But MacDonald also knows the other side. MacDonald knows the other side. Before the war, this man was the face of the America First movement. He campaigned against the war. He was publicly humiliated by FDR and barred from serving. What is a disgraced hero doing at a forward operating base? What is a disgraced hero doing in this wilderness? "I am here as a technical representative," Lindbergh explains calmly. "I want to talk about P-38 combat operations because I hear you have a range problem." MacDonald is skeptical. Fame does not save lives in combat, but he offers the civilian a cot. He has no idea about the revolution. He has no idea that this polite introduction is about to trigger a revolution that will rewrite the rules of aerial warfare. 10 nights later, inside an IM recreation hut with dirt floors, Lindbergh stands before a room full of exhausted pilots. He holds a piece of chalk and draws a simple RPM gauge on a blackboard. "Gentlemen," Lindbergh begins, his voice steady. "I have reviewed your operating manuals and I must tell you that you are flying the P-38 wrong." A murmur of anger ripples through the room. These men risk their lives every day, and being told they do not know how to fly. Being told they do not know how to fly by a civilian is an insult. Lindbergh ignores the tension. The manual tells you to cruise at 2200 RPM with the mixture set to auto-rich. That is safe. It keeps your engines happy, but it is also wasteful. You are pouring raw fuel out of your exhaust pipes. He taps the blackboard. "My recommendation is this. Drop your RPM all the way down to 1600. Lean the mixture to auto-lean. And then, this is the critical part, increase your manifold pressure to 30 inches. The room explodes. Every pilot there knows this is heresy. It is called running over square. It is where the manifold pressure number is higher than the RPM count. In flight school, instructors scream at cadets. They scream at cadets never to do this. Low RPM and high pressure put immense stress on the cylinders. It causes detonation, a metallic knocking that melts pistons and blows cylinder heads right off the engine block. "You will blow the engines," a pilot shouts from the back. "That is suicide." Another ace, Major Thomas McGuire, shakes his head. He shakes his head in disbelief. It sounds like madness. Lindbergh waits for the noise to die down. 17 years ago, he says softly, "I flew the Atlantic behind a fuel tank so large I could not see out the front. I had to fly 3,600 miles. The experts said it was mathematically impossible. but I landed in Paris with 85 gallons left. Do you know why? Silence falls over the hut. Because the manual is written for the average pilot. It is written to prevent accidents. It lists the safe limits. It does not list the physical limits. Every engine has a sweet spot where it burns the least fuel for the most power. Low RPM reduces friction. Leaning the mixture stops the waste. If you do it right, the engine will not blow up. It will actually run cooler. Then he drops the hammer. I have been flying your P-38s for the last week. I have been using these settings. Ask your crew chiefs how much fuel is left in my tanks when I land. The pilots look at each other. The rumors were true. Lindbergh's plane was coming back with 200 gallons. Coming back with 200 gallons still in the tanks when everyone else was running on fumes. Colonel MacDonald is a pragmatist. If the civilian is right, it changes everything. He orders a test flight. The next few days are terrifying. Pilots sit in their cockpits, hands trembling as they pull the propeller controls back. The familiar high-pitched screamed eyes. It is replaced by a low guttural thrum like a heavy tractor idling. The whole airframe vibrates with a strange, unfamiliar rhythm. Eyes are glued to the cylinder head temperature gauges, waiting for the needle to spike into the red, waiting for the explosion. But the explosion never comes. The temperature actually drops, the engines purr, and the fuel flow meter effectively stops moving. The consumption rate plummets. They go from getting 1.5 miles per gallon to 2.6 miles per gallon. The results are nuclear. The combat radius of the P-38 extends from 570 miles to 750, then to 950 miles. This is not just an improvement, it is a strategic miracle. Suddenly fighters can reach targets. Targets the Japanese thought were untouchable. They can fly all the way to Balikpain, hang around for 15 minutes and shoot, and fly home with an hour of fuel in reserve. General MacArthur's entire invasion timeline is accelerated. Operations are greenlit. Thousands of lives are saved not by a new weapon, but by a math lesson from a middle-aged civilian. But Lindbergh is not content. With being a teacher. The spirit of the lone eagle is restless, despite the presidential ban. Despite his civilian status, he talks his way into the cockpit for combat missions. Over the radio, he uses the call sign Mr. Lindbergh. He flies with the 475th, not as a passenger, but as a wingman. He teaches them how to fly and shows them how to fight. Which brings us back to that moment, July 28th, ahead on collision course with Captain Shimada. After that killer conspiracy forms. A quiet conspiracy forms at the base. The victory is recorded, but never officially credited to Lindbergh. It would be a court-martial. To write his name in the combat log would be a court-martial for the commanders who let him fly. It becomes the unit's open secret. But luck is a finite resource. 3 days later, on August 1st, over the Palau Islands, Lindbergh finds himself in a turning dogfight. He finds himself in a turning dogfight with a swarm of Zeros. He is 42. His G tolerance and reaction times are not what they were. His reaction times are not what they were at 25. A Zero locks onto his tail tracers, dancing around his canopy. He is seconds away. He is seconds away from death. It takes Colonel MacDonald screaming, break, right, diving into the fray himself to save him. That close call is the final straw. The generals realize they are playing with fire. Lindbergh has proven his point about cruise control. His cruise control technique has been adopted across the entire Pacific theater. He has done his job. They cannot afford the risk. They cannot afford to let the most famous aviator in history die in an unauthorized sortie. On August 12, 1944. On August 12, 1940, for Lindbergh packs his bag. He stands on the runway at Halangia one last time. There is no band. There is no band, no ceremony. Just a group of sun-baked, exhausted pilots standing in the dust. The skepticism is gone. In their eyes there is only respect. To them he is not the political pariah or the celebrity. He is the guy who taught them logic. He taught them how to stretch the laws of physics. He is the guy who gave them the fuel to get home to their families. Decades later, Colonel Warren Lewis would write, "He did not just give us range. He taught us that the impossible is just a problem. He taught us that the impossible is just a problem we have not solved yet. He taught us that the manual is just a starting point." Charles Lindbergh died of lymphoma in 1974 at the age of 72. He asked to be buried in a quiet churchyard. He asked to be buried in a quiet churchyard on the remote cliffs of Maui. His funeral was as simple as his arrival in New Guinea. No state honors, just 15 friends and a coffin he designed himself built from rough eucalyptus wood by local cowboys. He was buried in his work clothes. If you visit that grave today, you will not find a list of his medals or his secret air war. You will only find a simple granite slab with a verse from Psalm 139. If I take the wings of the morning, if I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, it is a fitting epitaph for a restless spirit. He was a flawed man, a complex hero, and a restless spirit, but for one summer in 1944 in the Pacific. But for one summer in 1940, for he used his genius to change the course of a war, not with a bomb but with math. If you want more hardcore breakdowns of history, just miscalculation, smash that like button and subscribe. I am your strategy observer. I will